In our fourth game, we have a modern example of this pawn pushing, these ideas with G and H pawn in this English type or Reti type positions. Game is played in last Chess Olympiad in Batumi, in an important match, in a match between France and Russia in the last round of the Olympiad, so stakes were high. White was Jan Nepomniachtchi, black was Etienne Bacrot. Let's see how did this game go. Knight f3. You will see some resemblance to Korchnoi previous game. d5, e3, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop e7. Nepomniachtchi loves this kind of ideas to push those pawns. For example, he had one game versus Vichy Anand, which I would like to show here, part of this game. Anand played move a6 here. After b3, bishop d6, bishop b2, castled. White decided to play here move g4. I know from experience, because I have played these positions not with white, but I did play it with the black. This is already, in a practical game, not easy situation for white, because you are thinking what to do. Well, you do not really want to take this pawn, because you understand if you take it, okay, rook g1, the file is going to be open and there will be some sort of initiative. So you are not in a mood to do it. On the other hand, you are not in the mood to allow move g5. And you certainly do not want to touch this pawn in order to allow a move like h4. So kind of you are stuck between rock and a hard place. Here Vichy, for example, takes knight f5, knight g4, rook g1. Here is interesting moment, because Anand played move f5. Like I said in a previous game of Korchnoi, which I was commenting, that often this is a good move, because the weakness of this diagonal now created, because pawns that they cannot go back, let's say, to f6 or something like this, is often less dramatic than it seemed. However, here also black had another interesting strategic option, and this was to play move knight f6, and after c takes d5 to play e5, and to try this way to close this diagonal. And I think that this was quite interesting. Anand played move f5, c takes d, e5. So playing it a bit different. h3, knight f6. Why? Well, I was proposing move knight f6 here, with the idea to close it like this. Well, the reason is because in the game, after Anand push move f5, white has here this move knight g5, trying to play for this square and to take this bishop. The game continued queen e7, queen f3, king h8, running away from this diagonal, so that when you jump on e5, I can basically take it. Knight e6, nevertheless, takes, queen takes. So bishop e6, d6, queen e6, and now queen to b7. A rather unusual position. White has a king in the middle of a board, but this king is reasonably safe. White has a bishop pair. Both players have somewhat damaged pawn structure. Probably white is slightly better, and Nepo went on to win this game versus Anand. The game was played in London Chess Classics 2017. So now let us get back to our main game. Etienne Bacrot played move bishop e7, b3, castles, bishop e2, c5. Okay, white needs to react, because black would, otherwise black is going to push d4, if you give him a chance. So c takes d5. Now again, decision for black, whether or not to play with isolated pawn. This is a personal decision. There is no here right or wrong. It is just you decide which kind of position would you like to play. Me personally, I would have taken by e-pawn, because I do not mind to play these isolated pawn positions. Probably d4 will come, knight c6. We have something which resembles Tarrasch defense, and it is a matter of choice. At the end, Bacrot takes knight takes d5. Qua pawn structure, we have a similar pawn structure compared to previous game of Korchnoi. And what is here Nepomniachtchi do? He plays move which was novelty at the time, I think. He plays move h4. He wants to be able to jump with the knight to g5. He believes, similar to Korchnoi, that knight is good, the king is good and safe on e1. And now the question is already what to play. Very soon, Etienne Bacrot would come into terrible problems, almost lost position. Very soon, a matter of few moves. Already here, move 8 is actually critical as to how to react here. Most probably, the best way for black to react is to take space on a king side and not to be afraid to push this pawn to f5, seemingly weakening himself. This is something which was played later. It was played in Abidjan in this rapid tournament by Sergei Karyakin, by Wesley So facing Sergei Karyakin in the same position. Wesley played move knight c6, and after move queen b5, queen b1, he pushed here f5. It looks very ugly, because you would say, well, you are giving all these kind of squares, but it stops, it doesn't stop, but it makes more difficult to push move g4. It prevents jump to e4. It takes some squares. Bishop b5 happened in the game, bishop d7. It is not easy for white to explore these seeming weaknesses created by f-pawn push. h5, knight f6, h6, g6. So this diagonal is now open, so similar to Korchnoi game. But it is not easy to somehow prove the exact effect of this. Castle happened, a6, bishop e2, knight g4. Very unclear game, which later on finished as a draw. d4 happened, cd4, ed4, very sharp game, knight b4, d5, opening a bishop, of course, bishop f6. Later on game finished the drawn. I'm not sure what is the best way to play such a position. For example, is it really clever to castle, because then this pawn will be hanging? Or maybe here to look for some useful moves. Maybe move like a3, and to play move like queen c2, after all, and to be ready maybe to castle a queen side. Very difficult decisions, certainly not easy in a rapid game. But decision by Wesley to play knight c6, queen b1, f5 was almost for sure home preparation. And so bear in mind, if you're playing with the black such a kind of position, and if you're playing with the white also, that is f5 to take space and to stop ideas which Nepo had in this game versus Bacrot is possible, and this potential weakening of those squares is actually less dramatic than it looks like. Bacrot played move b6, queen b1, h6, g4, pushing those pawns. Very straightforward play. By the way, move like knight g5 was possible, because after bishop b5, a5, queen g5, rook h3, white is having a very serious compensation. Piece cannot really be taken, a5, because takes, f5, g takes f6, bishop f6, queen g6. This looks like a tremendous attack, because if, let's say, bishop a6 to stop move bishop d3, ideas, then let's say knight d5, or to trade this bishop because it's attacking bishop. The knight d5 is probably winning. Queen d5, rook h5, e5 and castles. This king doesn't get out of the box. What is black's best reaction on knight g5? Remember my previous comments? Probably f5. And it's not easy for white to somehow prove these weaknesses really being wrong from black. And now white needs to actually be careful because perhaps black would really now take this knight. So Nepo played a better move, g4. Bishop b7, hoping to generate some counterplay. And out comes typical move for these positions, rook h3. Black is actually already in a very serious problems. White's attack may look primitive, but it is not easy to stop those rolling pawns and a different knight g5 ideas. Bakro played move knight d7, allowing this g5, which he maybe cannot stop. You may argue, for example, was it intelligent to trade a few pieces in this position and to snatch a pawn? For example, he would have taken on c3, takes back, bishop f3, rook f3, bishop h4. He traded a few pieces and took a pawn, but problem is that attack is very strong. Let's say queen e4, knight d7. Well, queen d5 is not working because of bishop d3. And on, let's say, g6, rook h3. And you cannot prevent the pawn from dropping and the mate. Everything is simply wrong. And on queen e4, if knight d7, then again bishop d3, g6. And now, for example, I can play like Korchnoi played in some of his games, king e2. Happily keeping my king, bringing rook in play. White king on e2 is very safe. Black king on g8, well, not quite. So, Bakro play move knight d7. g5, h5, what else? Very difficult to think of some better reaction. Bishop d3. Problem for black here, and I do know this from some of my games which went wrong in a similar type of play, is that it is really not easy to attack this king. It is in the middle of a board, but it is very difficult to do something concrete. While on the other hand, this king is not safe at all. Knight b4, check, king h8, bishop e4. He wants to trade this bishop. This bishop is a power. He does white does not mind trading. Knight e5, because what to do? If you takes, this looks terrible. This bishop is tremendous piece. Knight g3 is a threat. There is no counterplay. Nothing clear. Next to the fact that actually taking by queen is also possible. Bakro decided to play move knight e5. I guess he didn't want to allow this knight to e4. But now knight goes via e2. Black position is probably already between bad and lost. f5, he wants to take space to hopefully somehow lessen the grip on his position. There was not so much else to do. For example, with bishop d6, knight g3. Takes. Attack continues. This bishop is a real power. So, f5, takes, but now squares are very weak, king is weak. Knight g5, many pawn weaknesses. Actually, white has quite a compact situation around his king. And black has all sorts of problems. Knight e4, queen e4, threatening mate in one. Bishop g5, this is more or less forced sequence. But now, unfortunately for Bakro, king is also running out of defenders. Queen takes g5, is not working because of simple move queen h1. A very nice move. You cannot move the knight because bishop is pinned, pawn is pinned, and move like rook f5 does not help because obviously there is move also knight g3, so nothing has changed. And you cannot somehow try to be super clever because queen is hanging. You cannot take queen. Bacrot played move knight f4. Queen takes b7. Knight d3 check, because threat is mate in 1, so this bishop needs to be eliminated. King moves. Rook f2 will not help. Only thing is that rook will be hanging, and check simply that does not help. Rook g3, and now everything will fall. Knight takes b2, check. King moves. Okay, now how to win this position? White can here create extremely powerful threat to black's king. g6. Threat is mate in 3. Rook h8. Queen check. And mate. g6 was played, and black has resigned because, okay, white is having mating attack, also being pawn up, by the way, and black does not have any good ways to stop it because, well, if he wants to stop this mate, he has to move his rook, right? Otherwise his rook h8 and mate. Where to move this rook? If he moves his rook to, let's say, f5, it does not help because I can take. I can actually do many different things, but this is, let's say, very easy. And rook h1, and it would cost at least queen. Second option, to move rook to f6, well, it is going to cost queen. And queen h8 and rook h8 to come. So I like this basically game. Novel concept, though similar to this concept of Korchnoi from 70 years ago. And problem for Bacrot that actually as early as move 8, here he needs to take extremely important decisions as to what to do. And as early as move 11, his position is critical. And also very difficult to play in a real game. I was live official commentator at that Olympiad, and I do remember following this game. Bacrot was spending oceans of time. Why? Because very difficult strategic decisions to make here for black. Very difficult ones. And also no clear run of play. It is not like you make a move, you're solving a problem. You have to decide, do you want to trade this knight or not? Do you want to push f5, this pawn, to come to f5 or not? Where do you want to develop this bishop? Is it really that this diagonal will give you counterplay? Seems like not, because once rook came to h3, this bishop was not a valuable piece. Rather instructive game by Nepo, and also instructive how quickly you can come into situation to have to solve and decide on complex set of problems as early as move 8.